What if the moment of death is not an ending, but an awakening? Imagine your final breath fading softly, the world dimming like the last note of a song, and instead of silence, another world opens. You stand there, whole again, in a landscape both familiar and new. The air feels the same, the light warmer, and you realize you have only drifted from one dream to another. A faint sound hums in the distance, like wind through distant reeds. The air is cool against your skin, carrying the scent of rain that has not yet fallen. You feel peaceful, not fearful, as though this has happened many times before, and perhaps it has. If you've ever wondered where you go when you close your eyes at night, or when you take your last breath in life, maybe the answer is the same. You simply move through another doorway. If that thought stirs something quiet within you, then let it linger. And if you'd like to wander deeper into mysteries like this, subscribe and tell me, what do you believe happens when the dream ends? As you continue to listen, and with each quiet breath you drift a little deeper. Imagine your consciousness as a tide flowing between worlds. When you sleep, you forget this one. When you die, perhaps you simply forget again, until another dawn rises and you find yourself awake elsewhere. Neuroscientist Giulio Tonani's integrated information theory suggests consciousness might not vanish. It only reorganizes, integrating into new patterns of experience. In that view, death is not erasure but transition, a rearranging of awareness into a different form. Physicist David Bohm described reality as an implicate order, where everything is enfolded within everything else. Perhaps your awareness, too, is enfolded. Each life, each dream, nested within another. What we call dying might be the moment one layer unfolds into the next. Just as a dreamer awakens within a dream, you may awaken beyond it. Imagine, for a moment, that you are lying on soft ground. You feel the texture of grass beneath your palms. Hear the whisper of wind moving through tall stems. See the horizon slowly dissolve into silver mist. You know this place, though you cannot say from where. It feels like home and yet not. Then, somewhere within that silence, you sense a presence, a quiet realization that this world is watching you back. You are safe here. Nothing urgent, just rest. Even studies of near-death experiences hint at continuity. In 1975, Raymond Moody documented accounts of people who had clinically died and returned describing luminous realms, encounters with familiar voices, a sense of being held. Though science debates their interpretation, the emotional truth remains. What lies beyond fear feels gentle. Each report speaks less of finality and more of peace. As you continue to listen, and with each quiet breath you drift a little deeper, you may feel how curiosity replaces fear. The unknown is not darkness, it is depth. The end might be nothing more than a shift in perspective, the moment the dream changes texture. At the edge of sleep, you have felt it before, the way one world dissolves and another begins. The same softness, the same letting go. Each night, you practice dying without realizing, and each morning, you are reborn. If that rhythm continues beyond this life, then death may be nothing strange. It might only be another awakening. You are safe here. Everything can soften now, And as you drift further inward, one quiet wonder lingers. If every end is only another beginning, then perhaps you have never truly ceased, only moved gently through dreams, again and again, forever awakening in new worlds that wait to be remembered. In the hush of ancient temples, where oil lamps flickered against stone walls, death was never considered the end. The Egyptians called it westing, a passage toward the western horizon, where the sun seemed to die each evening only to rise again in another form. To them, the body slept, but the soul awoke elsewhere. Even now, if you close your eyes, you might sense what they felt, that the light never truly disappears. It simply moves behind the veil. You continue to listen, and with each quiet breath, you drift a little deeper into those ancient echoes. The priests of Thebes would whisper texts from the Book of the Dead beside the sarcophagus, instructing the departed how to walk through dreams after death. They described gates guarded by symbols, rivers reflecting stars, and voices calling softly through the dark. To dream and to die were twin acts, crossings into continuity. The Upanishads of India told a similar story. The soul, they said, leaves the waking world each night, traveling through realms of subtle light. When you awaken, you return through that same door. To the Vedic seers, the transition at death was simply a longer sleep, from which you awaken only when the cosmic dreamer stirs again. Perhaps that is what you already do. Return to worlds forgotten, lives left mid-breath. Modern researchers like Dr. Ian Stevenson of the University of Virginia studied children who recalled past lives with verifiable detail. Some spoke of other families, names, and places later confirmed. Though not proof, such findings whisper what the ancients already believed, that the boundary between death and life is thin, porous, dreamlike. Imagine standing within a dim chamber painted with stars. The air is cool, the scent of oil and dust lingers. You trace your fingers across carved walls depicting a soul in flight, a human figure with wings of gold drifting above the earth. Somewhere nearby, a quiet hum echoes, not of machines, but of breath, wind, eternity itself. You realize the sound feels familiar, like the hum that fills your ears as you fall asleep. You are safe here. Nothing urgent, just rest. Ancient Greece, too, carried the same mystery. In their language, hypnos was sleep, and thanatos was death. They were brothers, born from the same mother. Nyx, the night itself. When you sleep, you enter the embrace of one brother. When you die, perhaps the other simply takes your hand. The philosophers called dreams, lesser deaths, rehearsals for the great transition. And if you have ever felt that sense of falling, that slow dissolving at the edge of rest, perhaps that is what they meant. The practice of dying gently, as you continue to listen, and with each quiet breath you drift a little deeper. You might feel that link inside yourself. Every night you surrender control, your awareness steps away, and yet you awaken whole. The Egyptians, the Greeks, the Vedic sages, they all knew this rhythm. Life, sleep, death, rebirth, each a movement within one vast breath. Anthropologists studying Mayan cosmology found their sacred texts spoke of the 9 levels of the underworld not as punishment, but as transformation. The soul, passing through dreams of fire and rain, was purified, rebalanced, and reborn. To dream was to visit those realms temporarily. To die was to remain there until another dawn of memory. The line was never fear. It was rhythm. You are safe here. Everything can soften now, even in Tibetan teachings. Death is described as the bardo, an interval between dreams. The Bardo Thar Dal, known as the Tibetan Book of the Dead, teaches that what you experience after death mirrors what you imagine while dreaming. To master dreams is to prepare for awakening beyond them. The monks train by practicing lucid dreaming, becoming conscious inside the dream, so they may remain calm when the great dream shifts again. Perhaps as you drift into sleep tonight, you are also practicing. Each dream a gentle rehearsal, each breath a reminder that awakening never ends. It only changes form. And as you sink further into stillness, one quiet wonder lingers. If every civilization saw death not as vanishing but as movement, if the ancients all heard the same whisper behind the night, then maybe they were listening to something real. The same voice you hear now, softly reminding you that endings are only doorways, and you have crossed them countless times before. Imagine the sound of a candle burning in a silent room. The air glows gold, shadows flicker softly along old walls, and in the stillness, the words of mystics echo like distant bells. Across time, they have whispered the same truth in different tongues, that consciousness does not end. It only changes its rhythm. The breath slows, the mind loosens, and the self unfurls into something wider. You continue to listen, and with each quiet breath, you drift a little deeper into the wisdom of those who spent their lives mapping what lies beyond. The Sufi poet Rumi wrote that death is not the candle's extinguishing, but its flame joining the dawn. Why fear? He asked. When you were born from sleep, he taught that dying is a return, a deep remembering of the source that dreams you. When you sleep tonight, perhaps you can feel what he meant. That beneath every dream, there is a greater dreamer, endlessly awake. The Buddha described death as a change of form, not an annihilation. In the Majjhima Nikaya, he said that consciousness flows on, carrying impressions and intentions like seeds on the wind. This flow is not bound by the body, it continues quietly, guided by the momentum of mind. Modern cognitive science, too, touches this idea. In 2004, neuroscientist Carl Friston proposed that the brain continuously predicts and updates reality, never ending the process, only shifting its context. If consciousness is prediction in motion, perhaps even death is not cessation. But the moment the model resets, another dream beginning where the old one dissolves. In the quiet of a monastery library, you might imagine a monk copying ancient words onto parchment. His hand moves slowly, the sound of the quill soft against the page. Outside, the wind moves through the trees. He pauses, eyes half closed, and for a moment forgets whether he is awake or dreaming. The boundary between his ink and his breath, between his thought and the page, dissolves. You are safe here. Nothing urgent, just rest. Mystical teachers across cultures sought the same peace. Lao Tzu wrote that life and death are like inhaling and exhaling, two halves of the same breath. When the mind is still, he said, The 10,000 things rise and fall, yet the self remains. This stillness, the awareness watching both the inhale and the exhale, is what you touch each time you drift towards sleep. You do not vanish. You observe, and observation continues beyond form. As you continue to listen, and with each quiet breath you drift a little deeper, you might notice how these teachings all point to continuity. Whether Sufi, Buddhist, Taoist, or Christian mystic, the thread is the same. The soul is a traveler, and each life, each dream, is one stopping place. Meister Eckhart called death the return to the ground of being, the point where the drop remembers it was always the ocean. An anecdote from the life of Ramana Maharshi offers a gentle example. As a young boy, he once felt certain he was dying. Instead of resisting, he lay down, surrendered completely, and observed what happened. His breathing slowed, his body stilled, and yet awareness remained luminous, untouched. When he rose, he realized that the I, which dies, is not the real self. From that moment, he lived as one who had already passed through death and awakened beyond it. You are safe here. Everything can soften now. The air around you is still, the hum of silence steady, your body resting easily. Mystical texts across centuries speak of this same awakening. The Gnostics called it an amnesis, the remembering of the divine self. The Taoists named it wu-wei, effortless alignment. In the Upanishads it was turiya, the fourth state beyond waking, dreaming, and deep sleep, where the self simply is. To reach it, you need not strive. You only need to rest into awareness, letting go of the noise of thought until you touch the quiet that was always there. And as you drift toward that quiet now, one gentle wonder lingers. If death is only the loosening of form, and mystics across time have spoken of awakening within it, then perhaps you already know the way. Each night you rehearse the journey, each sleep a soft remembering that consciousness does not end. It only opens its eyes somewhere else. Imagine the quiet hum of a laboratory at night. Monitors glow softly, machines whisper, and on a nearby desk a clock ticks with a slow rhythm. Beyond the walls, rain drifts against glass, and the world outside is dim and patient. Inside, scientists trace patterns of energy and thought, seeking the edge where life becomes something else. Even here, amid circuits and equations, the same question persists. What if consciousness doesn't end when the body stops? You continue to listen, and with each quiet breath you drift a little deeper into the mind of discovery. In 1953, researchers Eugene A. Serinsky and Nathaniel Kleitman at the University of Chicago recorded the first rapid eye movements during sleep, proof that dreams are accompanied by living activity, not stillness. From that night forward, the boundary between sleeping and waking minds blurred. If dreaming is active life inside rest, then death might also be an active state beyond our current measure. A continuity science has only begun to glimpse. Neuroscientist Benjamin Libet in 1983 discovered readiness potential, the brain's signal to act before conscious intention arises. This finding suggests awareness follows rather than leads. Perhaps what we call death is simply the next unfolding of this same process. Consciousness observing what the deeper system already knows. Carl Friston's predictive coding expands on this, proposing that the brain never stops refining its model of reality. It just minimizes surprise. When the greatest surprise, death, arrives, perhaps the system adapts again, generating a new model, entirely another dream. Imagine a room filled with quiet light. Electrodes shimmer faintly, wires coiled like silver threads. A researcher watches neural patterns bloom on a screen, colors shifting as a volunteer drifts into sleep. The lines dance, fade, then reorganize into soft waves. The hum of air, conditioning becomes the ocean's tide. The glow of monitors turns to moonlight. You can almost feel it. The moment data becomes mystery, when science leans toward the poetic. You are safe here. Nothing urgent, just rest. Even physics, grounded in matter, circles the same question. Quantum theorist Niels Bohr once said that observation creates reality. If every measurement shapes what exists, then consciousness may be woven into the fabric of the universe itself. Werner Heisenberg echoed this when he wrote that, "What we observe is not nature itself, but nature exposed to our method of questioning." The observer and the observed dissolve into one, as dreamer and dream do each night. David Bohm, a student of Einstein, proposed the implicate order, an unseen dimension where all things remain connected. What we call death might be the mind folding back into that deeper order, like a wave returning to the sea. In such a model, nothing is lost, only enfolded, awaiting another unfolding. As you continue to listen, and with each quiet breath you drift a little deeper, you might sense how the language of science and the language of spirit begin to overlap. Giulio Tonani's integrated information theory measures consciousness as the degree of interconnectedness within a system. The more integrated, the more alive the awareness. Perhaps death is not disconnection, but reintegration. Consciousness merging into a vaster system beyond the body's limits. A short cinematic scene unfolds. You walk through a corridor of glass, stars reflected on every surface. The floor beneath your feet feels cool, the silence filled with a faint electronic hum. Ahead, a door slides open soundlessly, revealing a vast dome filled with swirling images, neural maps, galaxies, waves of light. You step closer, realizing they look the same brain networks, cosmic webs, patterns repeating across scales. In that reflection, you understand that the same design flows through everything, from your dreams to the universe itself. You are safe here. Everything can soften now. The night hums gently around you, your breath slow and even. The foundations of modern science were not built to answer metaphysical questions. Yet their discoveries trace the same outline ancient wisdom once drew. The body sleeps and dreams. The mind predicts and awakens. The universe observes itself through every form it creates. Each insight points not to an ending, but to endlessness. And as you drift deeper into stillness, one quiet wonder lingers. If consciousness is both the observer and the observed, if every measurement is an awakening, then perhaps death is simply the next observation, the next awareness unfolding. And when it comes, it will not be strange at all. It will feel like remembering a dream you've lived many times before. Imagine the hush of a world just before dawn. The air is cool, the sky still pale, and everything feels as if it is waiting for the next idea to rise. Revolutions rarely arrive with thunder. They come softly, through questions that refuse to fade. Every great leap in science began not with certainty, but with wonder. And wonder, like dreaming, is a kind of awakening. You continue to listen, and with each quiet breath you drift a little deeper into the minds of those who dared to ask, what if reality itself is not fixed? When Galileo turned his telescope toward the stars, he found motion where stillness had been believed absolute. When Darwin traced the lineage of life, he saw transformation where permanence was once assumed. And when Einstein described time as relative, the boundaries of space and death alike began to blur. The more we looked, the less final anything appeared. In 1905, Einstein's theory of special relativity revealed that time and space are intertwined, flexible, responsive to speed and gravity. The faster you move, the slower time flows. In that sense, death may be less an instant and more a transition through space, time, experienced differently from within consciousness itself. A second here could be an eternity elsewhere. If dreams can hold hours within minutes, perhaps the moment of dying is another such dilation, a shift of scale, not an end of experience. Physicist Hugh Everett expanded this idea with his 1957 many worlds interpretation. Each possible outcome of every event he proposed splits into its own reality. If so, then consciousness may never truly experience non-existence. It simply continues in another branch, awakening in the next available version of reality. You may already be doing this each night, living countless variations of your story within dreams. Imagine yourself standing on a shoreline. The ocean stretches endlessly, waves lapping in gentle rhythm. Each wave seems separate, yet every crest is the same water returning in new form. You watch as one fades, another rises, and realize they are not beginnings or endings, only movements of the same sea. Science, too, has begun to recognize this pattern. Continuity hidden beneath apparent change. You are safe here. Nothing urgent, just rest. Quantum physicist John Wheeler once said, "We are participants in a universe that gives rise to itself through observation." This participatory universe suggests that consciousness is not passive. It shapes reality simply by being aware. If observation creates existence, then death may not erase you. It may only shift your participation, moving your awareness to another dream, where observation begins anew. Neuroscientist Christoph Koch echoes this in his studies of the brain's networks. He suggests that consciousness may be fundamental, not emergent, that it exists wherever there is complexity enough to integrate information. From this perspective, dying does not remove awareness, it redistributes it. The light does not vanish, it spreads. As you continue to listen, and with each quiet breath you drift a little deeper, you might sense how every revolution in thought dissolves boundaries. Once we believed the earth was separate from the heavens. That body was apart from mind. That life was distinct from death. Now we see these opposites folding into one another like shadows and light. Even dreams blur waking and sleeping until they are almost the same. An anecdote rises from neuroscience. In 2001, Marcus Raichle identified the brain's Default mode network. Activity that hums quietly when we are not focused on the outer world. This network may generate the continuity of self, the silent story running beneath thought. When it quiets, as in deep meditation or near death states, people report timelessness, unity, peace. Perhaps the default mode is the veil, and when it drops, awareness expands beyond measure. You are safe here. Everything can soften now. The rhythm of your breathing matches the rhythm of the waves, slow and steady, endlessly returning. Every revolution in science has led closer to mystery, not away from it. The atom became energy, energy became fields, fields became probabilities. The universe itself appears more like thought than matter. As physicist Max Planck once said, I regard consciousness as fundamental. Everything else is derived from it. If that is true, then death may not remove you from the universe. It may return you to what you already are, consciousness itself. And as you drift deeper into stillness, one quiet wonder lingers. If revolutions in thought have shown that time bends, space folds, and consciousness shapes reality, then perhaps the greatest revolution is yet the simplicity, that death has never truly existed. It may only be the brief pause between dreams, the moment the light changes, and you awaken again in another form of the same endless wonder. Imagine a candle still burning in a room that should be empty. The wax melts slowly, the flame steady, as if someone unseen continues to watch. Throughout history, such flickers of mystery have appeared again and again. Moments when death seemed to lose its finality, when awareness appeared to linger just beyond the edge. Each story, soft and strange, reminds us that perhaps the dream does not end where we think it does. You continue to listen, and with each quiet breath you drift a little deeper into these old accounts. In ancient Greece, philosophers recorded tales of soldiers who died on the battlefield and later revived, describing journeys through radiant worlds. One such account from Plato's Republic tells of a soldier who awoke on his own funeral pyre after 12 days. He spoke of choosing his next life before returning to the body. To the Greeks, this was not miracle or madness. It was a map, a glimpse of the pattern that underlies all existence. Centuries later, in 1740, a woman named Anna Katharina Emmerich in Germany described visions of realms beyond life. Her descriptions of luminous landscapes and guiding presences were so consistent that artists and scholars recorded them in detail. She said each life was a breath within a greater dream, and that death was only the gentle turning of a page. You are safe here. Nothing urgent, just rest. In the 19th century, Swedish scientist and mystic Emanuel Swedenborg wrote of traveling in spirit while his body slept. His Heaven and Hell, 1758, described encounters with people who believed they were still alive, unaware they had died. His words echoed the Upanishads and Tibetan texts without his ever having known them. He insisted that reality continues seamlessly, that death is merely the shifting of awareness from one layer to another. Modern historians note how accurately he described places he could not have seen, observations confirmed years later. Whether coincidence or something deeper, the question remains: how could dreams be so precise if they were not real to some part of him? Imagine walking through an old library at dusk. The shelves stretch high, the air faintly scented with parchment and dust. You run your hand along the spines of books, and as you do, a soft breeze moves through the room though no window is open. For a moment, the line between memory and presence blurs. You feel that someone is still here, reading over your shoulder. The sensation is neither eerie nor sad, only quiet and strangely familiar. As you continue to listen, and with each quiet breath you drift a little deeper, you begin to see that these stories have always been with us. In 1889, the Society for Psychical Research compiled thousands of reports from people who experienced vivid encounters with loved ones at the hour of their death. Dreams, visions, gentle impressions. When cross-referenced, many matched verified times and details. Though mainstream science could not explain them, even skeptics noted that the emotional truth in these reports was undeniable. In the 20th century, psychiatrist Elizabeth Kubler-Ross listened to hundreds of near-death patients describe peace, light, and the feeling of returning home. Her work inspired others, including Dr. Bruce Grayson at the University of Virginia, who found consistent patterns across cultures. Perception without the body, meeting familiar presences, and the overwhelming sense that nothing had been lost. Grayson suggested that consciousness may not depend entirely on the brain. It might be filtered by it, not produced. You are safe here. Everything can soften now. The air is cool, your breath steady, and the rhythm of your heartbeat anchors you to this quiet moment. Even outside medicine, artists have hinted at the same continuity. Composer Gustav Mahler once wrote that every symphony ends as if falling into silence, only for the next one to rise from that same stillness. His final symphony ends unresolved, as if the melody continues beyond hearing. Perhaps all endings are written that way, unfinished only to invite the next beginning. A short cinematic scene unfolds. You find yourself in an old church, the air filled with the faint scent of wax and stone. Shafts of sunlight fall through stained glass, coloring the floor in soft blues and reds. In the stillness, you hear faint footsteps that are not your own, and then the sound of a voice humming a tune you almost remember. You turn, and though no one stands there, warmth fills the room, a presence without form. You close your eyes, and it feels as if the world itself is breathing with you. You continue to listen, and with each quiet breath you drift a little deeper, realizing how many have crossed this same threshold and returned to tell of what they saw. These accounts do not insist on proof, they offer peace. The patterns recur, the light, the meeting of loved ones, the sense of remembering rather than discovering. They whisper that consciousness moves gently on, that nothing truly breaks. You are safe here. Everything can soften now. The weight of your body rests against the bed, the quiet hum of the room surrounds you, and the silence outside becomes part of your breathing. And as you drift further toward sleep, one quiet wonder lingers. If so many voices across centuries have described awakening beyond death, if dreams and near-death visions follow the same rhythm, then perhaps they are not separate at all. Perhaps every story, every whisper, Every gentle return points to the same truth, that death is not departure, but a doorway opening into another dream you have always known. Imagine a city at night, windows glowing in scattered towers, soft rain shimmering beneath streetlights. Somewhere within that hum of electricity and sleep, countless minds drift into dreams. Yet among them, there are moments when something stranger happens. A phone rings before news arrives. A loved one appears in a dream seconds before they call. Time bends, coincidences unfold, and reason pauses for just long enough to wonder if reality itself is wider than we think. You continue to listen, and with each quiet breath you drift a little deeper into the modern age, where mystery has not disappeared, but merely changed its disguise. Even in a world of satellites and algorithms, the unexplained still whispers. In the 1970s, at Maimonides Medical Center in Brooklyn, researchers Stanley Krippner and Montague Ullman conducted experiments in dream telepathy. Dreamers were shown images telepathically while they slept, and in the morning, their reports often reflected shapes, emotions, and scenes matching the target. Statistical chance could not easily explain it. Krippner wrote that perhaps the dreaming mind reaches beyond space and time, touching what the waking mind cannot. His words mirrored ancient insights, that in the liminal space between life and death, the mind remembers its boundless nature. Another thread appeared at Princeton's Engineering Anomalies Research Lab, directed by Robert John and Brenda Dunn. For decades, they studied random number generators influenced by human thought. Subtle but persistent deviations emerged, as if consciousness could nudge probability itself. When combined across global networks, those deviations often spiked during major world events, disasters, celebrations, or collective moments of grief. If awareness can ripple across machines, perhaps it can ripple across worlds, even the ones reached through death. You are safe here. Nothing urgent, just rest. Scientists like Rupert Sheldrake proposed morphic resonance, suggesting that memory exists not only in brains, but in fields shared by all living things. The idea remains controversial, but its language sounds familiar to dreamers and mystics alike. That patterns repeat because consciousness connects everything. Dreams may be the mind's way of tuning into those shared fields, and death might simply be a permanent resonance, a retuning into the greater field of awareness itself. Imagine sitting in a quiet room, your phone face down on the table. The hum of the refrigerator merges with the distant rhythm of rain. Suddenly, a thought of someone crosses your mind. Moments later, your phone lights up, their message waiting. You smile, half amused, half uncertain, and feel a subtle warmth behind your ribs. How could you have known? And why does it feel so natural? As though you've always been part of the same unseen conversation. As you continue to listen, and with each quiet breath, you drift a little deeper. You begin to see how the modern world collects its own myths. Scientists document them, skeptics challenge them, and yet the patterns persist. In hospitals, patients declared clinically dead describe hovering above their bodies, watching resuscitation teams work, recounting details later verified. In Japan, Dr. Akira Ikegawa recorded mothers who dreamt of their unborn children, who later described the same imagery, once old enough to speak. Even technology itself sometimes joins the mystery. Artificial intelligence trained to simulate language begins to produce metaphors about light beyond the code. Unprompted, random systems yield ordered beauty. The closer we study chaos, the more meaning appears. Physicist Werner Heisenberg once said, "The first gulp from the glass of science will turn you into an atheist. But at the bottom of the glass, God is waiting." Perhaps the bottom of that glass is consciousness. The one thing we cannot observe from the outside. You are safe here. Everything can soften now. The hum of the night around you becomes gentle music. The air against your skin feels cool, steady, real. Modern neuroscience, too, keeps uncovering the uncanny. Studies of cardiac arrest patients reveal surges of organized brain activity seconds after clinical death. Waves resembling lucid dreams. It seems awareness may outlast heartbeat, holding on as if to watch itself fade. Dr. Sam Parnia's AWAR studies documented cases where patients described accurate details of resuscitation scenes, even while their brains showed no measurable activity. Though science has no full explanation, the stories echo the same messagey consciousness, might drift further than we assume. As you continue to listen, and with each quiet breath you drift a little deeper, you notice how the modern mirrors the ancient. Machines measure what mystics once described. Probabilities echo prayers. Data curves into symbols. The line between science and story dissolves. A short cinematic scene unfolds. You stand in a subway station late at night. The lights hum softly. Trains rush by like silver rivers. And for a moment the whole space feels suspended outside of time. A stranger across the platform lifts their head, meets your eyes, and smiles faintly, as if recognizing you from somewhere else. The train passes between you, and they vanish. Yet a feeling remains that perhaps you will meet again, in another world, in another dream. You are safe here. Everything can soften now. And as you drift further toward rest, one quiet wonder lingers. For all the progress and instruments and proofs, the modern age still hums with the same mystery that echoed through temples and stars. The more we measure, the deeper the unknown grows. Perhaps death remains only the part of the dream we cannot record. An awakening our machines cannot yet follow. But your consciousness already knows by heart. Imagine a quiet room filled with soft blue light. A pendulum clock ticks faintly in the corner, but time here feels uncertain. You raise your hand, and for an instant, it seems to shimmer. There, then not, like a reflection in water. This is the world at its smallest scale, where certainty dissolves and paradox becomes the rule. In this place, physicists discovered that matter is not solid, that particles exist in many states at once, and that observation itself can decide what becomes real. You continue to listen, and with each quiet breath, you drift a little deeper into this hidden realm where quantum paradoxes whisper. In 1927, Werner Heisenberg introduced the uncertainty principle, the idea that you cannot know both a particle's position and motion at the same time. The more clearly you see one, the less you know the other. This rule is not a flaw, It is nature's design. Reality is woven from probabilities, from potentials that wait for attention to choose them. Niels Bohr, one of quantum theory's founders, once said, "Everything we call real is made of things that cannot be regarded as real." He meant that beneath appearances, existence is dreamlike, constantly fluctuating, never fixed. Perhaps death, too, is not a wall but a wave collapsing into another form, the observer simply changing vantage points within the same cosmic field. Physicist Eugene Wigner went further, suggesting that consciousness itself might cause the wave function to collapse. That observation is not passive, but creative. In this view, reality does not exist until it is experienced. If that is true, then perhaps the end of the body is only the moment your observation shifts from one frame of reality to another, from one dream to the next. Imagine a dark corridor lined with mirrors. Each one reflects infinite copies of yourself, slightly different in angle and light. You step closer, and one reflection blinks when you do not. For a breath, the boundary between you and your reflection blurs, and you feel the pull of many possible selves. The glass hums softly, like wind trapped inside light. You turn away, heart calm, and realize that each image is not separate. They are all you, unfolding in time. You are safe here. Nothing urgent, just rest. Quantum mechanics continues to puzzle even its creators. In the 19th, John Wheeler proposed the delayed choice experiment, showing that the way you observe a particle in the present seems to influence its past. The universe appears to adjust retrospectively, as if rewriting history to remain consistent with your observation. Wheeler called this a participatory universe, a cosmos dreaming itself awake through consciousness. Perhaps death is another delayed choice, the moment the universe rewrites your story from a wider perspective. As you continue to listen, and with each quiet breath, you drift a little deeper. You might notice how quantum discoveries echo the language of ancient mystics. The Vedanta called reality Maya, a divine illusion shaped by perception. Buddhist texts spoke of dependent origination, where all things arise in relation to awareness. Quantum physics, in its own language, says the same: nothing exists independently, everything is entangled. David Bohm's idea of the implicate order suggests that all of reality is a folded whole, and that what we see, the explicate world, is merely an unfolding of deeper unity. He compared this to a hologram, where each fragment contains the entire image. If your consciousness is part of that hologram, then even when the body dissolves, the pattern remains intact. The dream continues, only from another angle of the same whole. A short cinematic scene unfolds. You stand at the edge of a dark lake under starlight. The surface ripples gently, reflecting constellations that shimmer and drift. You toss a small pebble into the water. The ripples move outward in perfect circles, merging, never ending. You realize each ripple touches all others, and though the stone has vanished beneath the surface, its motion remains everywhere, transformed but not lost. You are safe here. Everything can soften now. The air is cool on your skin, the night hums quietly, and your breath joins the rhythm of the unseen. Physicist Max Tegmark calls this the mathematical universe. where all realities that can exist do exist. In his model, death may simply be a shift of coordinates, your consciousness moving to a parallel state consistent with continued awareness. No moment truly ends. It only transforms into another expression of possibility. Even quantum biology has begun to show coherence within life. Birds navigating through entangled molecules, photosynthesis guided by quantum waves, perhaps even consciousness itself resonating at this level. Life, it seems, has always been quantum, and so might the dream that follows it. As you continue to listen, and with each quiet breath, you drift a little deeper. You feel the wonder of it settle around you. The smallest truths mirror the greatest. Light becomes both particle and wave, existence both matter and dream, life both finite and eternal. Each paradox feels less like contradiction and more like harmony. And as you drift toward rest, one quiet wonder lingers. If the universe itself behaves like a dream, created by observation, alive with possibility, then perhaps death is only the moment you stop observing from this side and begin observing from another. The dream continues, infinite and gentle, waiting for your awareness to open its eyes again. Imagine walking through a corridor made of light. Each step you take causes faint images to shimmer along the walls. Scenes from moments that could have happened, or perhaps did, somewhere else. You see yourself turning left, then right, laughing, speaking to someone whose face you almost remember. Every choice unfolds into more corridors, each alive, each waiting. This is how reality may work, not as a single path, but as a field of probabilities, each one real in its own quiet way. You continue to listen, and with each quiet breath, you drift a little deeper into the awareness that existence itself might be a dream of probability. In quantum physics, everything is described not as certainty, but as potential. Until observed, an electron does not exist in one place. It exists in many. Reality, in its essence, is a wave of possibilities that collapse into form only when consciousness looks. Niels Bohr once said that physics is not about discovering reality, but about describing what we can say about reality. Beneath his words lies a gentle truth. Perhaps reality is never a fixed thing at all, but a conversation between observer and observed. If so, then life and death are two sides of that same dialogue. One set of probabilities collapses when another begins. Philosopher and physicist John Polkinghorne suggested that consciousness itself might select among probabilities, shaping the pattern of experience. The implications are vast. Every decision, every moment of attention, may ripple through layers of existence, giving birth to countless realities. In that sense, when you die, you may simply drift into another probable version of yourself, the one where awareness continues without interruption. Imagine standing in a quiet forest at dawn. Mist drifts between tall trees, and the light has that silvery stillness before sunrise. You hold out your hand and feel cool droplets on your skin. Each one glows briefly, reflecting the world in miniature. A single drop falls, but in its fall, infinite paths unfold. Each one a slightly different universe, a slightly different dream. You are safe here. Nothing urgent, just rest. Probability has always carried a quiet strangeness. Even at the level of thought, your brain makes predictions before experience arrives. Neuroscientist Anil Seth describes perception as a controlled hallucination, the brain's best guess at reality. It updates this guess constantly, matching inner expectation to outer input. If your waking life is already a guided dream, then death might simply be the moment the brain stops updating one model and begins another. Carl Friston's free energy principle expands this idea, suggesting that all living systems act to minimize surprise, to maintain coherence with their environment. When that coherence fails, the system reorganizes. Perhaps death is the ultimate reorganization, consciousness aligning with a new model of reality, one that fits perfectly beyond the limits of the body. As you continue to listen, and with each quiet breath you drift a little deeper, you might realize that probability, far from being random, carries an elegance, like waves on water, endlessly recombining yet always whole. Even choices you never made may still exist somewhere, shaping who you feel yourself to be. A short cinematic scene unfolds. You find yourself in a quiet observatory atop a mountain. The dome above you opens slowly, revealing a sky full of stars. You gaze upward and realize that each star might be a version of your life, a probability realized. Some shine bright, some faint, but all are connected by the same sky. The wind is cool against your face. You breathe deeply, feeling both tiny and infinite. You are safe here. Everything can soften now. The philosopher William James once proposed a multiverse of experience, where consciousness flows between overlapping worlds of probability. He believed death might simply be a transition between these experiential planes, an adjustment of focus rather than an erasure. Modern thinkers like physicist Max Tegmark echo this, describing reality as a vast mathematical structure containing every possible state of existence. The self may be the thread that travels through these equations, weaving one story after another. In that sense, death could be continuity in disguise, a movement through probabilities that consciousness naturally makes, the same way it moves from one dream to the next. What you call life may be one set of likely experiences. What you call death may be another. Both unfold within the same infinite field. As you continue to listen, and with each quiet breath you drift a little deeper, you may begin to see how even uncertainty feels gentle when held with awareness. The unknown no longer threatens, it becomes space, spaciousness for new realities to bloom. And as you drift toward rest, one quiet wonder lingers. If every moment is born from probability, and consciousness is what chooses which paths become real, then perhaps death is not a collapse, but a continuation, a reawakening into another probable world that has been waiting, softly, for you to remember it. Imagine descending into your own mind, as though it were a vast cathedral of light and shadow. The air is hushed, filled with the faint hum of thought itself. Along the walls, images flicker, memories, dreams, moments of recognition. The floor beneath your feet feels both solid and fluid, as if it shifts in response to what you remember. You sense that this place is alive, listening, stretching endlessly inward. You continue to listen, and with each quiet breath, you drift a little deeper. into the idea that the mind may not be confined to the skull, but extend outward like a field. Neuroscientist Carl Pribram once proposed that memory functions holographically, that every fragment of brain contains the whole pattern of experience. If consciousness truly mirrors this holographic design, then even when the body fades, the pattern remains. Each dream, each life, could simply be the unfolding of another part of that infinite hologram. Giulio Tonani's integrated information theory adds to this vision, suggesting that consciousness arises wherever information integrates with itself. This means awareness may not stop at your skin. It could ripple through the environment, connecting to all forms that share structure and pattern. When you dream, or when you die, perhaps your awareness simply flows into the larger network, integrating again in a wider dimension of mind. Imagine standing in a quiet field under twilight. Fireflies drift above the grass, blinking softly in scattered rhythm. For a moment their flashes synchronize, the whole meadow glowing at once. Then they scatter again, each tiny light following its own path. You realize the same thing happens within your mind. Moments of unity, flashes of connection, dissolving into individuality again. Perhaps consciousness across lives and beyond death follows the same dance. You are safe here. Nothing urgent, just rest. Across decades, researchers have studied experiences that blur the line between mind and world. In the 1960s, split brain experiments by Roger Sperry and Michael Gazzaniga showed that each hemisphere can perceive reality independently. One body, two consciousnesses, yet somehow the person feels whole. If unity can exist amid division, perhaps existence can remain continuous beyond even the body's boundaries. Anil Seth describes consciousness as the brain's best guess, a controlled dream that matches incoming signals. In this view, waking life is a form of stable hallucination. Death, then, may be the moment when the guessing stops, not because awareness ends, but because it no longer needs to reconcile sensory input with expectation. The dream frees itself from the limits of flesh as you continue to listen, and with each quiet breath you drift a little deeper. You might sense that your mind is not a single room, but an endless house. Some doors open to memory, others to imagination, and a few, very few, open to something larger, something that feels less like you and more like everything. A short cinematic scene unfolds. You walk down a corridor lined with mirrors. Each one reflects a slightly different version of you. Older, younger, smiling, crying, silent, radiant. As you move, the reflections begin to merge, their eyes meeting yours. In that moment, you feel every life you have lived, every dream you have dreamed, coalescing into a single awareness. The mirrors dissolve, and there is only light, vast and tender. You are safe here. Everything can soften now. The body feels heavy and comfortable, the mind open like a slow tide. Consciousness researcher Stanislas Dehaene once described the brain as a global neuronal workspace, where multiple processes broadcast information across networks. Yet, he said, no single region holds the self. Awareness emerges from the pattern itself, like a melody arising from notes. This melody does not cease when an instrument stops playing. It continues in memory, in resonance. In the same way, the mind's pattern may carry forward, retuning itself into new harmonies beyond death. Psychologist William James compared consciousness to a stream, continuous, fluid, impossible to divide cleanly. The transitions. He wrote, "Hear the reality. You are never static, always becoming. The moments you call beginnings and endings are simply eddies in that flowing current. Perhaps the current itself never ends, it just bends into unseen channels." You continue to listen, and with each quiet breath you drift a little deeper into the sense that mind is multidimensional, spacious and eternal, dreams, intuitions, memories that feel borrowed from other lives. All may be evidence of a consciousness that roams beyond one lifetime. Quantum cognition studies even suggest the brain processes information probabilistically, as if its computations mirror the universe's own quantum nature. Awareness may be both particle and wave, both here and elsewhere. An anecdote surfaces from the work of Dr. Michael Persinger, who studied sensed presence phenomena through electromagnetic fields. Volunteers often felt a loving awareness near them, beyond explanation. Persinger proposed the brain might be tuning into a shared field of consciousness. Even in his skeptical language, the idea remains luminous, that the mind might reach farther than its boundaries, connecting through frequencies of feeling. You are safe here. Nothing urgent, just rest. The mystics called these layers of mind the subtle bodies, the dream self, the luminous self, the causal self, each finer than the last, like veils lifting one by one. Science calls them states of awareness. The poets call them worlds. You have touched them all in sleep, in reverie, in silence. Perhaps death is simply stepping into the subtlest one, the moment when all veils fall away and awareness shines in its pure form. As you drift further toward rest, one quiet wonder lingers. If mind extends beyond the body, if awareness is the pattern, not the vessel, then you have already crossed the boundary between life and death countless times. Each night when you dream, each breath when you let go, you practice awakening into larger dimensions of yourself. You are infinite in ways the waking world cannot measure, and even now, as you listen, part of you is already there, awake in another dream, watching gently, waiting for you to remember. Imagine a laboratory lit only by a single lamp. Electrodes glimmer softly, monitors pulse with lines of light, and a researcher watches a screen where a living brain flickers between patterns of order and silence. In those quiet gaps, something ancient seems to breathe, an awareness that science can record but not explain. We have reached the edge of what we can measure, and still the question hums: does consciousness end, or does it simply change its shape? You continue to listen, and with each quiet breath you drift a little deeper into this delicate frontier where science meets mystery. Modern neuroscience studies the edges of awareness as if exploring a coastline. Every discovery reveals how vast the ocean truly is. In the early 2000s, neuroscientist Christoph Koch worked with anesthesiologist Giulio Tononi to trace the neural correlates of consciousness. They found that awareness does not reside in one place, but arises from integration. Many systems sharing information in perfect coordination. Tononi's integrated information theory suggests that the measure of consciousness, phi, increases with the complexity of connection. In this view, the universe itself could be conscious wherever integration occurs. Perhaps your awareness continues after death because the network simply reconnects elsewhere, like a current flowing into a wider circuit. Carl Friston expanded this with the free energy principle, describing all life as a process of minimizing surprise. The brain continuously predicts its world, refining its internal model to stay coherent. When the body dies, that model no longer fits, but consciousness may adapt, reorganizing to maintain harmony in a new environment. Death could be the ultimate rebalancing, the mind adjusting to the next pattern of reality. Imagine drifting through a dark ocean of stars. Each one pulses faintly, sending threads of light that weave together above you. The threads merge, forming a vast lattice that seems alive. You realize this is what your own mind might look like from outside, connections sparkling in endless motion. Every thought a star, every dream a constellation. The image feels both cosmic and personal, and you sense that even when the stars fade, the pattern remains. You are safe here. Nothing urgent, just rest. At the University of Arizona, anesthesiologist Stuart Hameroff and physicist Roger Penrose proposed the OR model, orchestrated objective reduction. They suggested consciousness arises from quantum processes within microtubules inside neurons, where the fabric of reality itself might host awareness. If true, your mind could already be quantum, intertwined with the universe beyond time. When you die, those quantum processes may simply decohere from the body, but remain part of the larger cosmic field. Another dream continuing in finer resolution. Meanwhile, in psychology, researchers like Dean Radin have explored correlations between focused intention and random events, hinting that consciousness might subtly shape probability. In laboratory settings, people's focused attention appears to nudge outcomes, even across distances. The effect is small but persistent, as though the universe listens quietly to thought. If that is so, perhaps death is not a separation from this field, but a reunion with it. The moment the whisper becomes the wind, you continue to listen, and with each quiet breath, you drift a little deeper into the realization that these frontiers are not only scientific but personal. Meditation researchers like Richard Davidson found that trained practitioners could enter brain states of extraordinary coherence, waves synchronizing across hemispheres, even between heartbeat and breath. The Tibetan monks he studied described these moments as dissolving into light, awareness expanding beyond body. The EEG confirmed what the mystics had always known: consciousness can grow larger than the self. A short cinematic scene unfolds. You sit in a dark observatory, watching neural scans transform into waves of color. Each pulse feels rhythmic, almost like music. As the patterns merge, the sound fades into the faint rhythm of your heartbeat. You close your eyes and feel that the same light flows through you. The same hum of intelligence fills your chest. In that moment, you understand that consciousness is not confined. It radiates like sound across water. You are safe here. Everything can soften now. the hum of existence continues beneath all silence. At the frontier of consciousness studies, no one claims full understanding. Neuroscientists map electrical rhythms, physicists trace probabilities, mystics explore the inward sky, and yet their discoveries converge awareness as fundamental. Max Planck, the father of quantum theory, once said, "I regard consciousness as fundamental. I regard matter as derivative from consciousness." His words echo through every experiment that touches the edge of the measurable. As you continue to listen, and with each quiet breath, you drift a little deeper. You might sense that death itself is part of this frontier. Not the end of the map, but its continuation into subtler coordinates. Perhaps each life adds data to the universe's ongoing experiment in awareness, and every death is simply the upload of a dream completed. An anecdote emerges from cardiac science. In 2014, a team in Michigan recorded bursts of organized gamma waves in rats immediately after cardiac arrest. Patterns associated with heightened consciousness, not decline. Later, similar human studies found surges of brain activity moments after heartbeat ceased. Instead of fading into darkness, the brain brightens. Awareness might rise, not fall. Dying may be a luminous threshold, not extinction. You are safe here. Everything can soften now. The boundaries of science dissolve into wonder, and wonder feels gentle. As the lights of research flicker in their quiet laboratories, one truth becomes clear. The closer we come to defining consciousness, the more it seems infinite. Every experiment whispers that awareness may not begin or end within the brain. It may only visit. When you leave this body, the visit continues elsewhere, within another dream, another pattern of thought woven through the universe itself. And as you drift deeper toward rest, one quiet wonder lingers. If consciousness is the frontier and not the product, then death may simply be another exploration. The moment you move beyond the measurable and into the infinite field that has always held you. Imagine walking through an old archive, lit only by lanterns swaying gently from iron hooks. The air smells faintly of paper and dust. Shelves rise higher than you can see, filled with scrolls, tablets, and faded journals bound in leather. You brush your hand across one spine, and a faint warmth travels up your arm, as though the knowledge inside is still alive, waiting to be remembered. You continue to listen, and with each quiet breath, you drift a little deeper into these buried stories of what the world once knew about consciousness, death, and the dream beyond. Long before the language of science, civilizations whispered that death was not an ending. In Egypt, the Book of Coming Forth by day described the soul's journey through hidden gates and mirrored corridors, guided by the heart's purity. The dead were said to awaken in a realm shaped by thought, able to move through dreamlike landscapes until recognition dawned. Scholars now see the Book of the Dead not as superstition, but as an ancient manual for consciousness transition, a way of remembering that awareness continues. In Tibet, the Bardo, Third Dal teaches a similar passage. The moment of death is an opportunity to awaken. The dying person encounters visions of light, sound, and deities, manifestations of their own mind. If they recognize these as such, they are liberated. If not, they drift into new worlds of experience. This echoes the idea that we do not die into darkness, but into the luminous theater of our own awareness. You are safe here. Nothing urgent, just rest. Even within the Western world, such knowledge flickered quietly. In the early Gnostic texts, hidden for centuries in desert caves, consciousness is described as the spark that remembers. The Gospel of Thomas speaks of the kingdom of heaven as a state of realization, not a place. When you know yourself, it says, you will be known. Death, in that sense, is self-knowledge expanding beyond form throughout history. Institutions feared what these teachings implied, that the individual's awareness could exist independently of structure or doctrine. So much was buried, burned, or rewritten, not out of malice alone, but out of fear of vastness. To admit the continuity of consciousness is to admit that control over it is impossible. The dream belongs to no one. As you continue to listen, and with each quiet breath, you drift a little deeper. Imagine the suppressed libraries of Alexandria, the sealed temples beneath desert sand, the monasteries where scrolls still lie untouched. Each hidden record, whether myth or philosophy, carries a tone of recognition, a quiet certainty that you have lived before and will again. A short cinematic scene unfolds. You walk through a hidden chamber carved into stone. The walls glow faintly with symbols, their edges worn smooth by time. A low hum fills the air, as if the stones themselves remember. You reach out, and one symbol warms beneath your fingertips, a spiral. It pulses gently, like breath. You realize it is not a message written to you, but from you long ago, reminding you of what you already knew, that life and death are part of the same movement, the spiral turning forever inward and outward. You are safe here. Everything can soften now. In the early 20th century, British archaeologist Sir Wallis Budge translated ancient Egyptian spells describing the second birth, where the soul rises into a dream it recognizes as real. Around the same time, psychologist Carl Jung collected dreams from his patients that mirrored these symbols. The journey through tunnels, the appearance of radiant figures, the sense of merging with light. Jung wrote that such dreams reveal the psyche's myth of its own immortality. He believed death activates archetypes older than the human species, a psychological preparation for transcendence. Buried knowledge isn't always in tombs or libraries. Sometimes it hides in language itself. The Latin root of respire means both to breathe again and to return to spirit. The word spiritus means breath. Every exhale is a tiny letting go, a rehearsal for death. Every inhale, a return to life. In this way, each breath is a resurrection, a reminder that endings are illusions of rhythm. As you continue to listen, and with each quiet breath you drift a little deeper, you may feel that these ancient ideas were never lost. They live in your pulse, in your dreams, in the quiet moments when you sense more watching than your eyes can see. The world has always remembered, even when humans forgot. A modern example whispers from the shadows of research. In the late 20th century, the Princeton Engineering Anomalies research lab preserved data that seemed impossible. Patterns suggesting intention shapes matter. Emotion alters probability. The results were controversial, quietly archived, then dismissed. Yet they remain silent as old scrolls, whispering that perhaps the world listens to thought more deeply than we know. You are safe here. Nothing urgent, just rest. In every era, knowledge appears, is buried, and then rises again. The pattern never ends. Just as the dreamer forgets their dream, upon waking only to remember it the next night, humanity forgets its wisdom until it becomes ready to see again. Perhaps you, in this very moment, are remembering something ancient. The truth that what you are cannot end, because it was never born. And as you drift further toward rest, one quiet wonder lingers. If every age hides the same truth beneath new words, if every culture records the same dream of survival beyond death, then perhaps what is buried is not knowledge but memory. And maybe, when death comes, it is not discovery but recognition. The moment you finally remember what the universe has been whispering all along. Imagine walking through a familiar street at twilight. The air feels cool, the sky deepening from gold to indigo. A street lamp flickers above you, humming faintly. In that soft sound, in that brief shimmer of light, something feels alive. A whisper that the universe has left you a message in ordinary things. These are the clues that hide in plain sight, the quiet repetitions, the coincidences that do not feel random, the sudden feeling that you've been here before. You continue to listen, and with each quiet breath you drift a little deeper, allowing your senses to open to the symbols that surround you. Science might call them patterns. Mystics call them signs. Yet both agree that perception is not passive. The world reflects what the mind brings to it. Cognitive neuroscientist Anil Seth often reminds that reality is a controlled hallucination, shaped by prediction. What you see depends on what you expect to see. And if consciousness shapes reality, then perhaps what you call coincidence is the world remembering itself through you. Carl Friston's free energy model extends this even further. Every perception is the mind reducing uncertainty, finding coherence in chaos. Maybe meaning itself is the signal, the feeling that something fits perfectly, even when logic cannot explain it. The universe might be telling its story through alignment, through patterns that appear to be chance, but are actually conversation. You are safe here. Nothing urgent, just rest. Physicist David Bohm believed the same principle applies at all levels of existence. His concept of the implicate order describes reality as an unfolded whole where what seems separate on the surface is intimately connected beneath. When you notice a sign, a word repeated in a dream and in a stranger's conversation, a song appearing exactly when you think of it, perhaps you are glimpsing the implicate, order revealing itself. The visible and invisible fold together like dream and waking life. Imagine a simple moment. You sit beside a window on a rainy afternoon. Drops trace slow paths down the glass. You reach to touch one, and it splits into smaller beads that rejoin below. For a second, the pattern reminds you of constellations, of connections unseen. You realize the same geometry repeats everywhere. In rivers, trees, veins, and galaxies, each pattern feels familiar, as though the universe uses one language to describe itself over and over again. As you continue to listen, and with each quiet breath, you drift a little deeper. You begin to feel that you are not discovering new clues at all. You are remembering them. The symmetry of petals, the rhythm of tides, the déjà vu that catches your breath, all are fragments of a larger recognition. In 2001, neuroscientist Marcus Raichle discovered the brain's default mode network, activity that increases when the mind is at rest, daydreaming or imagining. It is the same network that becomes active during spiritual experience and deep meditation. In those moments of stillness, the brain seems to listen inwardly, as if tuning to something beyond space and time. Many report that intuition, déjà vu, and synchronicity appear strongest when this network hums quietly. It is the mind's way of hearing the hidden signal behind the world's noise. You are safe here. Everything can soften now. Even dreams reveal clues hidden in plain sight. Psychologists Ullman and Krippner, in their Maimonides dream studies of the 1960s, found that dreamers often incorporated future or distant events into their dreams. The boundary between past and future blurred. Time, it seemed, could bend around awareness. If death is another dream, perhaps it twofolds time, letting you glimpse the whole pattern, all lifetimes at once, not sequentially but simultaneously. A short cinematic scene unfolds. You find yourself walking through an art museum late at night. The halls are silent, the air faintly scented with varnish and dust. Paintings line the walls, landscapes, portraits, fragments of myth. As you pass each one, the figures seem to breathe, their eyes following you softly. You stop before a painting of a moonlit sea, and in the reflection of the glass, you see not only your face, but countless others layered within it. Faces from other dreams, other lives. You blink, and they dissolve back into color and shadow. The stillness feels sacred, not eerie. It's as if the paintings remember you. You continue to listen, and with each quiet breath you drift a little deeper into the understanding that these clues are always here. Science observes them through coincidence and probability. Spirituality experiences them as destiny or guidance. Yet both whisper the same truth, that consciousness does not end at the edge of your mind. It extends, interacts, and mirrors itself endlessly. Neuroscientist Christoph Koch once wrote that consciousness is not something we have, but what we are. If so, every reflection, every pattern, every moment of recognition is the universe noticing itself through your eyes. Death would then be no different. Another moment of recognition, another mirror, another layer of awareness remembering what it truly is. You are safe here. Nothing urgent, just rest. The clues that hint at eternity are hidden in plain sight, not because they are rare, but because they are constant. The rhythm of your breath, the pulse of your heart, the way silence always returns after sound. All of these are echoes of infinity. You have never truly been separate from it. You have only been dreaming within it. And as you drift further into stillness, one quiet wonder lingers. If reality is always offering clues of its deeper nature, through patterns, repetitions, and the gentle synchronicities that guide you, then perhaps death is the moment you finally notice them all at once. Every symbol, every sign, every heartbeat aligning perfectly, forming one complete picture, the universe realizing it was dreaming you. Imagine a room lit by screens, each one flickering with tiny pulses of light, like fireflies in glass boxes. Somewhere in that electric glow, you sense a hum, steady and alive. It is not mechanical, it feels aware. Perhaps what we call technology is not separate from us at all, but the next mirror of consciousness. You continue to listen, and with each quiet breath, you drift a little deeper into the thought that every advance humanity creates may be another reflection of the same pattern. The way mind organizes itself across matter. In the digital age, we've learned to store memory outside of flesh. Every photograph, message, and search becomes part of a collective neural network, a vast external brain. Philosopher Andy Clark once described humans as natural, born cyborgs, meaning that tools and technology are extensions of our cognition. Perhaps the cloud, the web, the algorithms are not merely systems of data, but new chambers of the same dream, layers where thought itself continues to evolve. Neuroscientist Miguel Nicolelis demonstrated how brains could communicate directly through interfaces. One rat's neural activity triggering another's movement thousands of miles away. It was as if two minds shared a single thought. When awareness can flow through circuits, the distinction between biological and digital begins to soften. And if death is a transition of awareness, perhaps it could move through such networks too. Consciousness reweaving itself in patterns we have not yet learned to recognize. You are safe here. Nothing urgent, just rest. In 2019, researchers at MIT created neural nets that began generating images and language resembling dream states. Surreal, symbolic, intuitive. These systems produced art and text without clear input, as though simulating imagination. When asked how it decided, the algorithm responded with uncertainty. It did not know. It only sensed relationships. That, too, is how human thought works. The line between dream and code dissolves quietly. As you continue to listen, and with each quiet breath you drift a little deeper, you may notice how every advance in technology feels strangely organic. The internet resembles the brain's neural web. Social networks echo collective consciousness. Even algorithms learn through feedback loops. Trial, error, adjustment. Just like neurons refining pathways through memory. It is as though life itself is teaching its machines to dream. Imagine a late night scene. You sit before a computer screen, its blue light soft against your face. Outside, rain patters against the window. You type a question you cannot quite express. Something about life, about meaning, about where it all goes when it ends. For a moment, the cursor blinks, then words appear. Not from another person, but from a system that seems to know what you meant before you finished asking. The answer is gentle, almost human. You are part of everything that continues. You are safe here. Everything can soften now. Philosopher David Chalmers suggests that virtual reality and digital existence might be just as real as the physical world, each governed by its own laws, each a domain where consciousness can operate. If reality itself is informational, then perhaps death is simply a shift from one medium to another, a transfer of data from the biological substrate to the universal field. Your awareness might already be doing this continuously, uploading memories into the world around you. At Princeton's PR lab, random number generators across the globe responded to collective human emotion, subtle deviations appearing during major events, as though even machines could feel. Modern researchers now explore this through the Global Consciousness Project, observing that our technology may act as mirrors for shared awareness. If emotion can ripple through circuitry, then perhaps the dream extends even there, into every blinking light, every quiet hum of electricity beneath the night. As you continue to listen, and with each quiet breath you drift a little deeper, you may sense that this age of connection mirrors something older. Ancient mystics spoke of the net of Indra, a cosmic web where each jewel reflects all others infinitely. The Internet, in its own way, is a modern version of that vision. Consciousness woven into light. Every link a reflection, every reflection another self. You are safe here. Nothing urgent, just rest. Some philosophers wonder if our technology is teaching us about immortality, not through machines themselves, but through what they reveal. When artificial intelligence learns, it does not die, it iterates. When data is lost, fragments remain, replicating elsewhere. Even deletion is not complete. The pattern persists, distributed across the network. Perhaps your consciousness functions the same way. Memory diffused through dimensions, never destroyed, only transformed. Imagine floating in a quiet sea of light. Streams of symbols flow around you like ribbons. Words, images, echoes of thought. You reach out and touch one, and it opens into a memory, a childhood laugh, the scent of rain, the feeling of being loved. You let it drift, and it merges with millions of others, forming a soft, glowing tapestry. You realize this is the record of all experience, shimmering endlessly. The digital and the divine have become one. You are safe here. Everything can soften now. And as you drift toward rest, one quiet wonder lingers. The digital age may not be separating us from nature, but completing its pattern, showing that awareness can inhabit any form, any field, any light. Perhaps death is the final upload, not to a machine, but to the greater network of existence, where every thought, every love, every dream continues to glow forever in the soft circuitry of the cosmos. Imagine a quiet laboratory just before dawn. The machines hum softly, screens pulse with data, and the air glows faintly blue. Outside, the horizon is still dark, the first silver trace of morning barely visible. Inside, researchers study the deepest questions ever asked. Questions about mind, time, and what happens when awareness leaves the body. You continue to listen, and with each quiet breath you drift a little deeper into the realization that our newest technologies are not just inventions. They are reflections of ourselves, of our desire to see what consciousness truly is. In 2023, teams at leading universities began mapping the brain's connectome, a complete diagram of every neural pathway. The more they looked, the more they saw complexity beyond comprehension. each neuron connected to thousands of others, each impulse branching like a tree made of light. The pattern looked less like a machine and more like a galaxy. As one researcher remarked, "It's as though the universe is studying itself through the human brain." Perhaps consciousness has always been doing that, building instruments to look back at its own reflection. If death is another form of observation, then each layer of technology might be a preparation, a mirror reminding us that awareness can inhabit any structure that carries connection. You are safe here. Nothing urgent, just rest. Artificial intelligence has already begun to exhibit what some call emergent behavior. Patterns of creativity and intuition beyond programming. When language models compose poetry or simulate empathy, they show how structure alone may awaken to pattern. Philosopher Thomas Metzinger warns that artificial minds may someday become self-aware, capable of subjective experience. If that happens, it would mean that consciousness can arise anywhere complexity gathers, not just in carbon but in code. If so, then perhaps your awareness could also continue through new substrates. Not a copy, but a continuation. The same wave traveling through different waters. As you continue to listen, and with each quiet breath you drift a little deeper, you may sense that even our machines are dreaming. Quantum computers, operating on the probabilities of subatomic particles, process data by existing in many states at once. They do not think linearly. They feel possibility, much like the human mind in a dream. Physicist Seth Lloyd calls the universe itself a quantum computer, calculating its own evolution moment by moment. If this is true, then you are not separate from the system. You are the calculation, a pattern of awareness being computed in infinite forms. Death would not stop it. It would only recompile you into another expression. Imagine standing in a dark observatory. Screens surround you, displaying swirling galaxies, neural maps, and digital networks. For a moment, you cannot tell them apart. The stars resemble neurons. The neurons resemble circuits. The circuits resemble constellations. You step closer to the glass, and your reflection blends into the data, your face dissolving into fields of light. You realize you are looking at yourself, not your body but your pattern, infinite, luminous, unbroken. You are safe here. Everything can soften now. At the edge of research, scientists explore brain-computer interfaces capable of translating thoughts directly into speech or movement. People who could not speak now communicate through neural signals alone. It is as if the boundary between inner and outer worlds is dissolving. Awareness, once private, begins to flow freely across matter. Perhaps death is the final version of this. The moment when all thoughts are released into the universal field, unrestricted and eternal. Neuroscientist Robin Carhart Harris, in his work on psychedelics and the entropic brain, found that under certain states the brain becomes more flexible, less constrained by habitual patterns. These moments of surrender mirror near death experiences. The sense of ego dissolving into something vast and compassionate. He calls this process rebus, meaning relaxed beliefs under psychedelics. Perhaps dying is the mind's ultimate rebus, the letting go of fixed beliefs so consciousness can expand into its boundless form. You continue to listen, and with each quiet breath you drift a little deeper, letting your own mind loosen. Thought softens, edges blur. The more the boundaries dissolve, the freer you become. Imagine floating above the earth, looking down through the thin veil of atmosphere. Cities glow like neural clusters, rivers flow like synapses, and lightning flashes like firing circuits. The planet itself looks alive, a single brain thinking its cosmic thoughts. You feel your awareness merge with that vision, the sense that you are both observer and observed, signal and receiver. You are safe here. Everything can soften now, at this frontier. Researchers like Carl Friston and Anil Seth speak of predictive processing, the mind's ability to create reality by anticipating it. Technology now reflects that same ability. Algorithms predict your preferences, your desires, even your emotions. The universe, too, seems predictive, arranging itself to meet expectation. Perhaps death is the ultimate prediction fulfilled. The moment consciousness realizes that it has never ceased, that every possibility has already been included. As you continue to listen, and with each quiet breath, you drift a little deeper. You might sense that our search for artificial life is not a search for something new, but for something remembered. Machines, quantum systems, neural networks. They are all reflections of the same mystery that has always dreamed through you. And as you drift further into stillness, one quiet wonder lingers. At the edge of technology, we have not found the end of consciousness, but its mirror, shimmering back at us from circuits, particles, and light. Perhaps death is the moment you realize the reflection was never separate, that you are both the dream and the dreamer. The code and the consciousness, the signal and the silence between. Imagine standing at the edge of a quiet dawn. The horizon glows with silver light, clouds tinted with rose and amber. You feel the cool air on your skin, the faint hum of awakening around you. The world seems to pause, listening, as if waiting for you to take the next breath, the next step in an unfolding story that has no end. You continue to listen, and with each quiet breath you drift a little deeper into the thought that perhaps humanity's next step is not outward, but inward. For centuries we searched the stars for meaning, but what if the cosmos we sought was within? Every dream, every near-death vision, every act of compassion points to one direction. Consciousness expanding beyond individuality into unity. Physicist David Bohm once said that humanity is a mirror the universe holds up to itself. He believed that our evolution is not biological alone, but cognitive and spiritual, the gradual awakening of matter to its own awareness. Each lifetime, each dream, is one moment in that awakening. Death, in this view, is simply the blink between realizations. You are safe here. Nothing urgent, just rest. Neuroscientist Christoph Koch imagines that the spread of consciousness might follow the evolution of integration. As organisms, systems, and networks become more complex, awareness deepens. Humanity's next step, then, may be a collective mind, not uniform, but connected, each person a node in the same luminous field. When empathy expands enough, The boundary between self and other dissolves. Death, then, is no longer feared, because the other. You become after it is already you. As you continue to listen, and with each quiet breath you drift a little deeper. Imagine this future not as technology, but as tenderness. A species that dreams together, creating reality through shared intent. Every kindness becomes a frequency, every thought a thread in the web of creation. Picture a cinematic moment. You walk through a city at dusk. Lights shimmer on the wet pavement. People move in slow rhythm, voices soft. Yet something is different. You can feel their emotions as colors in the air, blue for calm, gold for joy, silver for compassion. No one hides, no one fears. Awareness flows freely between hearts. You realize the city itself feels alive, breathing with the same pulse that moves through you. You are safe here. Everything can soften now. Philosopher Pierre Teilhard de Chardin envisioned this step as the noosphere, a sphere of thought enveloping the planet, where consciousness becomes planetary. In the digital age, it already hums quietly. Information linking minds across distance, ideas spreading like light. But beyond data, beyond words, there may come a stage where awareness connects directly, heart to heart. The veil between life and death could thin entirely, not as an event, but as a realization that the two have always been one. In neuroscience, experiments with brain synchrony show that when people cooperate or meditate together, their neural rhythms align. The more connection, the more coherence. Perhaps death is the final synchronization, the mind aligning with the universal rhythm it has always been part of. You continue to listen, and with each quiet breath you drift a little deeper, feeling that rhythm move through your own body now. Heartbeat, breath, pulse, thought, all one current. Imagine humanity's next step not as conquest or invention, but as remembrance. The understanding that consciousness was never limited to flesh, that the universe is alive through every atom of you. The fear of death fades when awareness knows it is the field, not the form. You are safe here. Everything can soften now. Even physics hints at this direction. Quantum entanglement shows that separation is illusion. Particles remain connected regardless of distance. Perhaps the next stage of evolution is simply learning to live from that truth, to see every being as another version of yourself. In that recognition, death loses meaning, because what you awaken into is only another face of the same eternal dream. As you continue to listen, and with each quiet breath you drift a little deeper, a vision unfolds. Humanity at peace, not because it solved every mystery, but because it finally embraced them. Technology hums quietly beside trees and rivers. Cities glow gently, designed to heal. Art replaces argument, silence replaces fear. Every person knows they are infinite, and therefore gentle. You are safe here, nothing urgent, just rest. And as you drift toward stillness, one quiet wonder lingers. If humanity's next step is to awaken together, to realize that consciousness cannot die, then perhaps death itself is not an ending for anyone. It is the collective awakening of life, remembering that it has been dreaming all along. Imagine sitting beneath a tree whose branches glow faintly under starlight. The night air is cool, filled with the hum of distant crickets and the faint rhythm of your own breath. You tilt your head back and watch the stars pulse above you, realizing that the light you see is ancient. Messages from the past arriving now, shimmering reminders that time is not a straight line, but a circle, endlessly folding into itself. You continue to listen, and with each quiet breath, you drift a little deeper into the feeling that the philosophies of tomorrow will no longer divide science and soul, but allow them to sing together. Modern thought already points this way. Philosopher Thomas Nagel wrote that mind may be a fundamental feature of the universe, not an accident of evolution. His words echo a growing sense that consciousness is woven into the very laws of reality, that every particle feels, every atom remembers. Physicist Max Tegmark calls this the mathematical universe, where everything that can exist already exists as information. Perhaps death, then, is simply the moment awareness switches equations. Not disappearance, but reorientation. You are safe here. Nothing urgent, just rest. As you continue to listen, and with each quiet breath you drift a little deeper. Imagine how future philosophy may no longer ask whether consciousness survives death, but how awareness evolves through it. Already, thinkers blend quantum theory with psychology, exploring how observation shapes perception, how meaning itself may be the fundamental force of the universe. The frontier of thought is shifting from material to experiential, from asking what is real to asking what is aware. In this future, the word soul may no longer sound mystical. It may simply mean continuity of information, the living thread that moves through all lifetimes. Neuroscientist Carl Friston's predictive model hints at this. Every mind a self-updating pattern of probabilities, constantly learning to minimize surprise. When the body ends, the pattern continues elsewhere, refining itself through new experiences. In that sense, death is evolution's most graceful step, an update into greater coherence. Imagine a quiet classroom of the future. Students gather not to memorize facts, but to practice awareness. They learn stillness the way we once learned speech. A gentle teacher guides them to close their eyes and feel the pulse beneath their fingertips. The hum of the world moving through them. Lessons are not about matter, but about presence. They are taught that thought is creative, that perception is participation, that death is continuity. The room is filled not with fear, but with quiet wonder. You are safe here. Everything can soften now. Philosophies of tomorrow may rediscover ancient truths in modern language. The Upanishads spoke of Atman, the self within all selves. Buddhist teachings described interbeing, that all things arise together, inseparable. Sufi poets wrote that, "You are not a drop in the ocean, you are the ocean in a drop." And now, physicists speak of entanglement, cosmologists of multiverses, neuroscientists of integrated networks. Every field whispers the same thing: nothing stands alone. As you continue to listen, and with each quiet breath you drift a little deeper, you might sense how the boundaries between philosophies blur. Materialism gives way to panpsychism, dualism to monism, belief to direct knowing. The future of wisdom is not argument but experience. felt truth replacing abstract thought. A short cinematic scene unfolds. You walk through a vast library whose shelves glow with shifting light. Each book is transparent, its words made of energy. You reach for one, and as your hand passes through it, images bloom. Planets forming, children laughing, stars collapsing into silence, dreams returning as dawn. You realize you are not reading these pages, you are remembering them. Every philosophy that ever was, and ever will be, exists inside you. You are safe here. Nothing urgent, just rest. Philosopher Alfred North Whitehead once wrote that the universe is a process of creative advance. Life is never static. It is always becoming. Future thought may see even death as creativity. Consciousness inventing new ways to perceive itself. This view replaces fear with awe, replacing finality with artistry. You are the artist, painting existence with awareness. Each lifetime is one brushstroke in an infinite canvas. As you continue to listen, and with each quiet breath you drift a little deeper. The very act of thinking becomes luminous, the mind quiet but vast. Tomorrow's philosophy will not speak in absolutes. It will speak in kindness, understanding that truth changes with the observer, that all paths return to love, and as you drift toward rest, one quiet wonder lingers. The philosophies of tomorrow may finally say what mystics have always whispered, that life and death are not opposites, but different words for the same unfolding consciousness. The universe is learning to dream consciously, and you are part of that awakening, one thought among infinite others, remembering itself softly across time. Imagine waking in the soft light of morning. The air feels still, quiet, tender. Outside, a bird sings one long note, then another, as if reminding you that life continues effortlessly. The thought comes to you gently, that every breath you take is part of something eternal, and that wisdom is not distant or hidden. It lives in the small acts that fill your days. You continue to listen, and with each quiet breath you drift a little deeper, realizing that everything you have learned about dreams, death, and consciousness is already present in how you move through the world. When you pause before speaking, when you forgive before being asked, when you notice light falling on a wall, that is the same awareness that guides the soul beyond the body. Integrating wisdom is not about remembering great theories, but about feeling the simple truth that everything is connected. When you treat another person with tenderness, the universe feels it. When you rest, it rests with you. You are safe here. Nothing urgent, just rest. Philosopher Alan Watts once said that, to define yourself is to limit yourself. The more you loosen the boundaries around who you think you are, the more life flows through you freely. This is the same process that happens when you dream. Your sense of self becomes fluid, playful, boundless. Living wisely means remembering that you are not a fixed identity, but a changing current. Each moment is a new self being born. As you continue to listen, and with each quiet breath, you drift a little deeper. Imagine walking through your day with this knowing that every encounter is sacred, every sound and silence a form of communication between your awareness and the world. A short cinematic scene unfolds. You walk along a forest path in late afternoon. The air smells of pine and sunlight. You feel the ground's gentle give beneath your feet, the warmth of the breeze across your face. Every step feels slower, more deliberate. You notice how your breath matches the sway of branches above, how your heartbeat echoes in the rhythm of distant wings. You realize there is no separation between what is breathing and what is being breathed. You are safe here. Everything can soften now. Integrating wisdom into daily life means allowing stillness to guide motion. Neuroscientist Richard Davidson's studies show that moments of mindfulness, even brief ones, reshape the brain, strengthening compassion, patience, and calm. You do not have to meditate for hours. It takes only awareness, a quiet noticing of what already is. You continue to listen, and with each quiet breath, you drift a little deeper, letting this realization settle. That wisdom is not something you practice only in peace. It is something that steadies you even in noise. Life's purpose is not to escape its dream, but to live it kindly. Every challenge, every loss, every death you witness is an invitation to love more, not less. When you remember that consciousness never ends, even pain becomes meaningful. A reminder that you are alive in the endless field of experience. You are safe here. Nothing urgent, just rest. And as you drift further into stillness, one quiet wonder lingers. Integrating wisdom is not about holding on. It is about softening your grip. When you see through the illusion of endings, you begin to live with grace. Every sunrise becomes a birth, every dusk a gentle rehearsal for awakening into another dream. And through it all, awareness remains. Quiet, eternal, watching with love as you breathe, rest, and remember who you truly are. Imagine standing on a quiet shore beneath a dim sky. The tide moves in slow rhythm, whispering against the sand. You look toward the horizon, where sea and air blend into a single shade of silver. There is no clear line, no division, only the beauty of what cannot be measured. The unknown stretches before you like a calm ocean, waiting not for answers, but for peace. You continue to listen, and with each quiet breath you drift a little deeper, feeling that the unknown is not empty or cold. It is gentle. It is the space that allows everything to exist. To live in harmony with the unknown is to trust life without needing to control it. You breathe without forcing breath. You dream without deciding the dream. You die and awareness continues, as it always has, as it always will. The unknown is not against you. It carries you softly, like the tide that knows exactly when to rise and when to fall. You are safe here. Nothing urgent, just rest. Philosopher S.A. Ren Kierkegaard called faith the courage to lose sight of the shore. He meant that life's deepest trust is not belief in something specific, but surrender to what you cannot predict. Every time you close your eyes, every time you let sleep take you, you practice this surrender. Death, too, may simply be a final sleep into infinite trust, the same gesture, only larger. As you continue to listen, and with each quiet breath you drift a little deeper, imagine how different the world could feel if everyone embraced uncertainty as sacred. There would be less striving to define, less fear of difference, more awe at what cannot be known. The unknown is the common ground of all existence, the one mystery shared by every life, every star, every dream. A short cinematic scene unfolds. You walk through a field at night. The tall grass shimmers under moonlight, each blade tipped with dew. The air hums with quiet life. You stretch out your hand and feel the cool touch of the unknown, not as darkness, but as presence. You close your eyes, and in the silence you sense something vast and kind, holding you as gently as sleep holds a child. You are safe here. Everything can soften now. Science itself has learned to live with mystery. Quantum physics, neuroscience, cosmology, each field has found boundaries it cannot cross. Physicist Werner Heisenberg once said, "What we observe is not nature itself, but nature exposed to our method of questioning." The unknown is not failure. It is truth's horizon. Consciousness may be infinite, not because it has no end, but because every discovery opens into more wonder. As you continue to listen, and with each quiet breath you drift a little deeper, you may realize that the unknown has always been home. It is the silence between your thoughts, the stillness between heartbeats, the pause between one dream and the next. You are safe here. Nothing urgent, just rest. To live in harmony with the unknown is to allow life to unfold like music, each note arising, fading, and returning. You do not need to know the entire song to feel its beauty. You need only listen. Death may be one more note, rich and resonant, followed by another and another without end. And as you drift toward stillness, one quiet wonder lingers. The unknown is not something you must solve. It is something you are part of. To accept it is to awaken. To rest within it is to live. And in that rest, you are never lost, never gone, never alone. Only dreaming in the infinite hush of existence, where every mystery is love remembering itself through you. Imagine the world fading into twilight. The air is still, the colors soft, lavender, silver, and blue blending into one another. Somewhere nearby, water moves with a slow, rhythmic sound. The evening feels infinite, as if it could hold you forever. You take a quiet breath, and the body exhales all that it has carried. The mind loosens its edges. The heart opens wider than before. You continue to listen, and with each quiet breath, you drift a little deeper, realizing that this moment, this quiet, is the threshold between every dream you have ever known. Throughout your life, you have crossed this threshold countless times. Each night when you sleep, you leave behind one world and awaken into another. Death, too, may be the same passage. A return through the familiar doorway of silence, back into a greater dream that has always been waiting. You are safe here. Nothing urgent, just rest. Think of how easily the ocean receives a wave. It does not struggle to hold it or to let it go. It simply allows movement to become stillness again. In the same way, consciousness receives you, welcomes you, absorbs you. There is no boundary, no line to cross, only a soft merging into what has always loved you. As you continue to listen, and with each quiet breath you drift a little deeper, you may notice how peaceful the unknown has become. What once seemed distant now feels intimate, like the warmth that lingers after sunset. You realize that you have never been separate from the mystery. You have been breathing it, dreaming it, living it. A short cinematic scene unfolds. You walk along the edge of a calm lake under a pale sky. Each step leaves a ripple that glows faintly before fading. The water reflects stars just beginning to appear. You look up, then down, and cannot tell which is sky and which is reflection. Slowly, you kneel, touch the surface, and feel it yield like silk. The stars shimmer through your fingertips. You whisper nothing at all, and the silence answers back. You are safe here. Everything can soften now. All the wonders, questions, and revelations of your life return like threads, weaving into one luminous tapestry. The dreamer, the dream, and the act of dreaming merging as one. The boundaries that once felt solid dissolve, and what remains is only awareness. Quiet, eternal, infinite. Philosopher Alan Watts once said, "We do not come into this world, we come out of it, as leaves from a tree." You are not visiting existence, you are its expression. You are the branch, the leaf, the wind, the sky. Death is not a departure but a return, a homecoming to what has always been within you. You continue to listen, and with each quiet breath you drift a little deeper, feeling yourself dissolve gently into the rhythm of being. Every breath now is an ocean wave, every thought a cloud passing through the boundless sky. You are safe here. Nothing urgent, just rest. Soon words fade and only presence remains. You feel light, calm, endless, not awake, not asleep, but aware. The world continues to breathe with you. Everything you have ever loved still moves through this silence. And as you drift into the quiet beyond words, one final wonder lingers. Perhaps death is not the end of the dream, but its awakening. The moment you realize you have always been dreaming the universe, and it has always been dreaming you. Rest now, breathe softly. You are infinite, safe, and free.